Oh, welcome to Old Classic Car Now. I was planning on doing a video outside today, but as you may be able to hear, the rain is tinkling down on the roof of the garage, so being outside today isn't really an option. So instead of doing this reveal video, I'm just going to do a bit of an update video, what we've been up to in the last few weeks, and what we plan going forward to do in 2023. Now, other news in the OCC menagerie, I hesitate to call it fleet or collection because that just sounds a little bit sort of delusions of grandeur, so I tend to call it the menagerie here in the garage. But there have been a couple of changes. A couple of the old long-termers have gone on to new homes. Now, I did hint about this in a recent video because like I've said several times before, so I won't bore you too much, but yeah, the idea has been to move away from cars that need lots of work and have fewer that kind of work. So anyway, as part of that, the little Ford van has gone off to a new home. That had been here for 6 years, something like that, and it wasn't improving, it wasn't getting plenty closer to being on the road, and with other things that I want to do, including the A40, you know, cutbacks were needed. So that's gone off to a good home. The gent that bought that seems very keen on E83Ws, which is good news. He seems to know what they're all about. He's got a couple of pickups which apparently are also restoration projects, but he'd been looking for a van for quite a long time, I think, and this one had a nice story. It had been off the road since 1966, so that's gone off to a good home. I was really sorry to let that go, to be honest, because it took a long time to find it, but sometimes you just need to sort of cut back a little bit. So that's gone, and you'll notice perhaps that the Anglia is sat where the MGB used to be, because yes, the MGB development car has also gone off to a new home. Now, that was almost on the road, so that didn't need a mountain of work, but I did need to make some space for reasons which will become obvious later. I'll talk about that a little bit later. So those two have gone, the van and the MGB, so they are here no more. The MGB has gone down to, I think it's the Isle of Wight. The gent who bought that was very, very keen to purchase it, and the history of it being a development car, factory development car, is what really appealed to him. Same with me. All those years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, something like that, I bought the MGB, and I genuinely had no plans to sell it. But A, because I've been sort of trying to cut back a little bit this last year, 18 months or so, and B, the opportunity came along to buy a vehicle that I had known, a friend of mine had owned for nearly 10 years, something like that, and I did actually photograph one of my vehicles with it many, many years ago, and sadly he passed away back in October, and the opportunity popped up really out of nowhere. It was just a total surprise really, and the opportunity popped up for me to buy this vehicle, and the only way it was viable to do it, i.e. pay for it and store it, but mainly to pay for it, was something else had to go. So hence that kind of softened the blow of selling the van and the MGB, and combined I pooled that together, and that's gone in to this new arrival, which I was going to do, like I say, I was going to do a reveal video today, but the weather is so awful, I'll leave that for another day and talk about that more in a separate video. But yeah, that was the reason for those two going. A, I wanted to cut back on things that need loads of work, and B, the surprise opportunity, the unexpected opportunity to buy this other vehicle which I've known and liked and really, really wanted to own for nearly 10 years. When that opportunity came along, sometimes you just have to jump, and in order to accommodate it and to take it on, something had to go, and I needed to make space in here to house it, because you can't leave old things outside, and that's another part of what I've been trying to do with this rejigging over the last sort of 12-18 months or so, is to try and have pretty much everything under cover. I mean, the garage, we're fortunate the garage is quite large, but it doesn't take, you know, it's quite easy to fill these things up, so it doesn't matter how much space you've got, you will fill it if you're not careful. And that was, you know, that was the reason for letting those two go. So yeah, there's been a few changes on the fleet front, but hopefully, I'm hoping that'll be it now, because I find selling cars, especially online, whether it's on one of the classified ad sites or auction sites or whatever, I find selling cars to be a bit of a nightmare. I did have a run around on both the MGB and the van. People did mess me around before these other two gents came along and they played ball, and it was all nice and easy, but prior to that, one of them I'd put up for auction, the bid, you know, had some good bids, and the high bidder had plenty of feedback, over 2,000 positive feedbacks, really good comments and everything. And within a couple of minutes of the auction ending, he messaged me and said, "Oh, actually I don't really want it, just bid on impulse, so that completely messed up the whole auction, and that kind of thing just does my head in. It really does. If you're going to bid on something, honour your bid, please. The van, we agreed a price on the van. Someone down quite the other end of the country really, so he spent a few days, he got his transport all lined up and so on, and then he just contacted me and he said he'd changed my mind. I can understand if someone actually turned up and said, oh, it's not what I want, so I didn't know it needed this, or I kind of get that, even though it would be very, very annoying, but just to sort of go, don't really want it anymore, that really isn't playing ball. But unfortunately eBay and places like that seems to be full of time wasters. Anyway, I'm hoping that that's it for selling things. As this sort of rejigging, I've kind of got to where I want to be now. So in 2023 I want to improve and carry on working on and using what we've got now, and sort of carry on from there really, because like I said, the priority was to move away from project cars that need loads and loads of work and sort of prioritise and focus more on things that work and just need looking after. So that's really underpinned all these changes that I've been doing in the last year and a half or so. Anyway, so the MGB's gone, the van's gone, there is a new arrival, and I will talk about that in a future video. Okay, so we're early into 2023, but we've already managed to fit in a couple of shows. Now, you should already have seen the Bicester Heritage video, the Sunday Scramble for January 2023. That video should have gone live by now, so if you haven't already seen it, please check that out, because that was quite an enjoyable do. So that was on the 8th of January. On the 1st of January, we went to the New Year's Day VSCC local meeting, and at the end of this video, I will put up a link, I've just strung together some photographs really of some of the cars that turned up at that event. We took the Standard, the little black Standard 8, and it was a jolly time was had, even though the weather was a bit like today, not all that promising, but yeah, that was really good. So we've done the New Year's Day VSCC meeting, and we've done Bicester Heritage already, and hopefully there'll be plenty more shows coming along this year. I'd like to try and revisit some of the shows we did last year in 2022 and 2021, and also add in a few new ones just to sort of keep things fresh, and also go and see some cars that maybe we haven't actually seen before. So we're going to try and do a mix of existing shows, places we go to regularly, and also some new events. Cholmondeley Castle, a classic car show there, is back on again this year, so we're hoping to definitely get along to that in May. If you see us at any of these shows, me and my youthful assistant, please come and say hello, because we don't bite. But yeah, that's the plan for the shows, and we've got 1 or 2 museums I'd like to try and get to this year. And if there's anywhere that you think we should be trying to fit in this year in terms of museum visits or shows, please let us know, because we've done quite a few, but there's always plenty more to choose, to go at. We're based in the north, so we try and sort of prioritise shows that are within reasonable travelling distance, but we don't mind travelling a bit further, such as the Goodwood Revival, places like that, if there's something really worth going to. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you think, or places you think we should be trying to get to this year. So as well as visiting a few new shows and museums in 2023, what else do we plan to do with this year? Like I say, the menagerie here is more or less where I want it to be now, so it's a case of using and improving what we've already got. Now the Anglia here, one of the things I'd like to do with that this year is, well, not this year, it's just in the next couple of weeks really. I know it had a replacement cylinder head gasket fitted before I bought it, and I would like to re-torque that down, so I want to give this a bit of a service and just make sure everything's tickety-boo. It runs really nicely, but obviously you want to keep it that way. The Renault 4CV, that's only had one outing just before Christmas to the Hopley House Farm Shop gathering, a bit of a Sunday morning meeting. That one appeared in the video towards the end of last year. I want to try and get some miles on that and just see where we're at with that. I did find that coming back, there was a bit of a tendency for it to cut out when you came to a halt, and that suggested that one of the jets, probably the idle jet, was a little bit blocked. So it's got a Weber carburettor on it. Originally it would have had a Solex on it, but the Weber carburettor, handily you can get at the 2 jets externally without disturbing the carburettor or removing it, so that's quite a good thing. So I took the 2 jets off, blew them through. There was a little bit of dirt in one of them, and I'm hoping that that's cured its sort of idling woes that it had. It was only a minor problem, it wasn't the end of the world by any means. You could just give a little bit of choke and it carried on running fine. So that's the 4CV. Big Dodge, there's a couple of little jobs I want to do on that, but nothing really major. So what have we got? The Morris, well, maybe try and do a little bit more to that this year hopefully, but the main thing really is to crack on with the little Austin A40. One of the ideas, like I say, of getting rid of projects was to have fewer projects that I could then concentrate on and only have one or maybe two cars that need loads and loads of work, because they take up time, energy, money and so on. And the more sort of more thinly you spread yourself, the less you actually get done on any of them. So that really wasn't working, and yeah, that's the plan with that. There are also a few little updates I want to do on the main Old Classic Car website. I set that up back in 2001, and in places it is a little bit outdated now. There are some areas of it that just want deleted and moving altogether, or freshening up. The forum, that ticks over. It's not hugely busy. I think I set that up in about 2005 or 2006, but with everyone using Facebook and things like that nowadays, forums are fairly quiet. It's ticking over. So I'll just keep an eye on that, and sort of, you know, what I don't want is that the forum just becomes really, really quiet and no one uses it. So we'll see where we go with that. But there are a few areas on the main website I want to just freshen up, delete a few bits, add a few bits, and so on, just to keep that updated, because yeah, otherwise things can become a little bit stale. And this YouTube channel sort of blends in with the forum and the main website, and the idea is they all sort of form together and bounce off each other, so people may visit the website and go across to the YouTube channel, or the forum, go from the forum to the YouTube channel, from the YouTube to the main Old Classic Car website. That's kind of how it's meant to be, like a sea of sort of interrelated classic car information, resources, chit-chat, videos and so on. And that's been the whole idea of this, is just been to share my interest in old cars and the old car memorabilia, and that's what Harley does with his Car Traction channel as well. So between us we're going to hopefully create lots and lots of new content this year, which hopefully will prove to be of interest. You can't please everyone all of the time, but hopefully over the course of, you know, months and years, there will be some content to keep most people happy who are interested in this thing as much as we are. I mean, I've been into old cars since the mid-1980s, hence having accumulated all this stuff. So yeah, that's the aim anyway. And obviously I would like to just extend a quick thanks to everyone that's supported the channel so far. There are different ways to support the channel. I mean, I haven't gone down the Patreon route, but there is the little thanks option, which a few people have done, so thank you very much to the people who've done that. That just contributes towards the cost of going to some of these shows. You know, I mean, not that that's going to deter us from going, but it is appreciated, because it does add up going to a few of these shows, but we don't have to do it, but we enjoy doing it. Now, how can you help support the Old Classic Car channel going forward? And I don't mean dipping in your pockets. What I mean is, if you watch a video that you think is particularly interesting, please share the link to it with people you know. Maybe you're in a classic car club, and you might know a few people who are interested in this kind of thing too, so please email that link or post it on a forum if you've got a club forum somewhere. Because the more people who carry on supporting the website, the better it looks in YouTube's eyes, and they will continue to promote the video and help it grow, help the channel grow and so on. And that's good, because that means I can spend more and more time doing and creating the classic car content that's similar to we've been doing over the last couple of years or so. I mean, I really enjoy doing this. You know, it's no burden at all. We'd be going to these classic car shows and museums anyway, and to film it is just an added level of enjoyment to us. We both enjoy doing it, Harley and his channel, and me on the Old Classic Car channel. It's all really good fun, but obviously it does take a lot of time. So if we can continue the momentum of new subscribers, likes, comments, sharing links to videos and so on, that really, really helps the whole channel grow, and means I can spend more and more time putting this kind of thing together. I'm surprised, really, to be honest, how many people have actually subscribed in the last year or so, and it's a real joy and pleasure to sort of share this interest of old cars and all the gubbins that goes with it with everyone out there. You know, it just blows my mind that, you know, thousands and thousands of people are watching these videos all over the world. I just find that incredible. The Capesthorne Hall video, for example, that we did last August, I mean, that's had nearly 300,000 views at this moment in time, and that just blows my mind. I just think that's incredible. I can't imagine 300,000 people sat at their phones or at their PCs or laptops or whatever, watching these little videos that we put together. And I just say a big thank you to everyone that does that. And if you can help spread the word in any way, just to keep this momentum going, keep the ball rolling, keep it getting bigger and more popular and more follows and likes and so on, that would be so appreciated. And again, I'd just like to thank everyone that has supported the channel this far. You know, comments, subscriptions, likes, comments saying you don't like things, because the last thing I want is just to receive praise for things. You know, if you don't like something, let me know, and I will factor that in and feed that into future videos that we do, and Harley learns from it as much as I do. And I'm we're very much at the early stages of YouTube. I mean, I set the channel up, I can't remember, about 2001, somewhere like that. Put up a few videos, then I let it live for 10 years until we had the lockdowns and all those shenanigans at the early, sort of, was it March 2020 or somewhere around there, and stuck for something to do. I thought, you know, let's, because obviously up until that point, for the last 10 years or so prior to that, I've been updating the main Old Classic Car website on a very regular basis. But I wanted to sort of diversify and sort of come up with new ways of creating content that relate to things that I'm interested in. So I thought, well, I'll dust down the YouTube channel and see if we can just sort of build that up. And I'm just blown away with how well it has all gone. It's not a huge channel, it's still a speck in the overall world of YouTube. There are some huge channels out there with huge numbers of followers, but that's not really the motivation for this. The motivation is to share my interests and things that we do and things that other people might find interesting with the viewership out there, and that's the main motivation. But in order for YouTube to continue promoting the videos and content that we do, you have to try and keep that momentum going, so there is a pressure to try and keep the ball rolling and not back off. So any help that you guys can offer with just sharing things or commenting, because the more interaction that YouTube see with these videos, whether it's comments, likes, dislikes, subscriptions and whatever, the more they will think, ooh, this is a channel that people are actually finding interesting or are willing to sort of contact and communicate with. And the more there is of that, the healthier it is for the channel, and that will help it grow and help us spend more time doing this kind of thing that we like to do. So anyway, that's that. Now I'm just going to show you a quick, like I mentioned before, we did the New Year's Day VSCC meeting back on January the 1st, and there was a wonderful turnout of old cars there, mainly vintage, but quite a few classic cars there as well. So I've just strung together just a selection of the photographs from that day, which hopefully you will enjoy too. So here we go. It was New Year's Day, very damp day, so yeah, it was the roads were flooded, etc. So I was really unsure what cars would actually turn up to this VSCC New Year's Day meeting. But fortunately, there was a good turnout. Here we go. Here's a photograph, just a general photograph of the car park that was pressed into service for this particular New Year's Day meet. We've got a glorious Lagonda there in the foreground. What a Bobby Dazzler that car is. This turned up a little bit later on. This, I'm not quite sure of the age of this, but this is a Talbot, a very early vintage Talbot. Quite an amazing car. I haven't seen this one before. Very tall screens, because the seating position is also very high. Now there's quite a few classic cars there as well, including this 196 HRE, which is a Triumph TR2 registered back in July of 1955. Very bonny looking example there. Blue soft top, you don't often see that. And mini light wheels next to the TR2. We've got this sort of mid to late 1930s Austin 7 Ruby. This belongs to a gent in town, and he uses it most days all year round. Great little car. This is often to be seen pottering round the town. Austin 7, there's always going to be a few Austin 7s at a VSCC gathering, and here we've got what looks to be an Ulster replica. The sporty Austin 7, if you like, of the late 1920s. This one appears quite regularly over from Wales. Next to that we have a Riley. This is a Riley 9 Lynx, and I was quite surprised when I had a peer inside. This has a traditional floor change gearbox. Usually when I peer inside a vintage Riley, it has a pre-selector gearbox. Just up from that, alongside a mighty Rolls Royce, we've got UH8204, a Morgan Aero. This one put on the road here in the UK in May of 1930. Great little car this one is too. And again, another open car braving the elements on this very soggy New Year's Day. Same for this. An MGA Roadster, SYV 234. Another Austin 7, multiplying. We've got a Chummy here. So this is a 1920s, probably 1924, 25, something like that. Chummy. It's a fairly early one because the headlights are on the scuttle rather than at the front near the radiator. The mighty Rolls Royce. This has been at a couple of shows we've been to recently. 20 horsepower Rolls Royce, I think this is. A mighty Tourer, out in all weathers. Great to see it being used. This was at Crew Heritage just before Christmas, and also at a farm shop meeting. Next up, an MG TD, early 1950s. Carrying on with this quick look at just some of the cars that turned up on New Year's Day. Another Austin 7. This is a slightly later one than the Chummy we saw before. Still an earlyish one, chrome radiator, but a 4-seat Tourer in this case. The Chummy before was not. But yeah, lovely little car, this one. Lovely SS100 here, BDW38. I'll look this one up on the DVLA website. This SS100 was put on the road in July 1937. This was possibly the car of the event for me, VP03, a wonderfully original AC Ace. This one dates to June of 1956. Still got the original AC engine in this one. Another big old Rolls Royce. Had to look this one up because I wasn't quite sure. This apparently is a Rolls Royce 2530 Sports Saloon. Someone pointed this out for me. It's got a kneeling Spirit of Ecstasy. Usually she's stood up, but in this case she's kneeling, which is something I've never seen before. This one was also at the Hopley House Farm Shop meet just a few weeks ago. Really smart little two-door Morris 8 Series 1. Another post-war classic here. We've got an F-registered MGB Roadster, mildly modified by the look of it, debumpered. Looks really smart actually. We had a good look over this one. I think Harley was quite impressed with that. Another MG, but a pre-war this time. This is an MG 1880. This one gets all over the place too. The owner of this particular car really uses his vintage cars properly and travels all over the place. So there's no surprise that this one turned up. Back to post-war cars just for a moment, and we've got a lovely old Riley RM here, PKE 803, and you'll see the pale blue badge on the radiator shell telling us that this is a 2.5 rather than a 1.5 litre car. Back to Elvis's, very nice indeed, and we've got a 2-seater Elvis 1250 Tourer here. You can just about see the bunny rabbits, which is the Elvis mascot, on top of the radiator. And over on the village green, where some of the later cars that turned up parked, we've got this wonderful Mark II Mini Cooper. Very nice indeed on an H plate. One of the organisers got this glorious old Aston Martin. This car dates to 1922, making it one of the very first Aston Martins of all. Very smart indeed. Model A. Very smart too. This is a Model A Coupe, or Coupe, about 1929 or 1930 or thereabouts, and there you're probably looking at two of the best choices if you're going to sort of dip your foot in the water of vintage car motoring. Austin 7 on the Model A. Much later here we've got a 1972 or early 73 Citroen DS, the DS Super. What a great example that was. Mrs OCC was very keen on this one indeed. But much older is this BS 9469. This wonderful machine is a 1913 Chalmers. Absolutely stunning. This one pops up at places such as Lowton Park when the VSCC hill climb takes place. Magnificent. Now this was one I haven't seen before. A German registered Lagonda 4-seat Tourer. Apparently it's over in this country having a bit of fettling done to it, and it was great to see it here on New Year's Day. Nice old Vauxhall here. I'm guessing this is early 1930s, about, I don't know, 31, 32, somewhere around there, I guess. I haven't looked this one up. But yeah, smart 4-door, 4-seat Tourer with side screens. A bit more Model A action here. This time we've got a Tourer to go with the Coupe that we've already seen, BF7019. Canadian flag on the radiator there, and it's a right-hand drive car. Another Elvis 1250. Very nice indeed. This one was originally parked over on the village green, but it was moved over to the main parking area when the space became available. And over on the village green we spotted this parked next to the Mini, a really nice Sunbeam Alpine. I do like those black painted wire wheels, so much nicer than chrome in my opinion. Let me know if you disagree in the comments, I'm sure you will. And here we've got a Bullnose Morris parked alongside the Lagonda we saw earlier on. This is a fairly early Bullnose. The radiator I think differed slightly. It's got the lovely old honeycomb grille, or radiator rather. And this was seen arriving, but it didn't stay long. We've got a Saab 96, one of the V4 powered cars. And last of all, another Lagonda parked over in the distance on the village green. There's a standard in the background, you can just see it there. But yeah, GJ5890, a wonderful vintage Lagonda. And that just rounds out this quick summary, this quick stringing together of many of the cars that turned up at this year's New Year's Day meet. Now, one of the other ideas that I had for the channel, which I would welcome your feedback on, is I did think, after many years of messing around with this aged tin, was to maybe do like a series of videos on, you know, if you're buying or thinking about buying a classic car for the first time, what kind of car maybe to choose. Should you be buying a restoration project or a car that's already done, standard 8 perhaps, and that kind of thing. Things to think about in terms of storing a car, what tools you might need if you're going to buy an old car for the first time. So really I thought, yeah, a series of videos perhaps aimed at people who are thinking about dipping their toe in the world of classic cars, because it's a hobby that is only growing and growing year on year at the moment, and that's really heartening to see, because the more people are interested in this kind of thing, the more businesses are required to support it, the more people that are trained up to work on paintwork, bodywork, trim, engines, transmissions and so on. So that's all really good for helping the hobby grow and the business behind it all grow and keep in a healthy state, because without people supporting this kind of thing, you know, the hobby becomes very hard to continue with. And I thought, you know, is there interest in videos on that kind of thing? Buying a starter classic, what would be a good first classic car? How should you go about buying a classic car? Should you buy one at auction or from a classified ad? And the risks and benefits involved with either approach. So if you think that's a good idea, please give me some feedback in the comments, because that's something I could probably do throughout 2023 as and when time allows. And that's just something I thought would add an extra layer of content and sort of diversify the content that is on the channel, sort of adding and improving on what's already gone before. So if you think that's a good idea, please let me know. Anyway, that's just a quick update on what we've been up to in the sort of final weeks of 2022 and our plans and thoughts going forward in 2023. I hope everyone has a very happy new year. Slightly belated, I know, but thanks very much for watching. Please keep watching, that's the important thing, and there'll be more videos along very soon, including a new reveal.